Hello, everyone, and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 CJ Cup DFS Tactics show. Quite a bit to get into, so I'm going to try to rattle through this intro. Links to my social media are in the description. Hopefully, you've been following me because you'll know that I was moving the time back this evening for this show. So follow me there, and of course, that's where I place all of my betting cards for each week, including for tomorrow. Live chat is open. Would love the interaction. Let me know what you're thinking about when you're making your last minute decisions on your lineups. Who are you fading? Who are you pivoting to? All that stuff. And then lastly, as always, all statistics provided by Fantasy National. Can't say anything more than it's well worth the investment. It's an amazing tool. Go check it out. So with that, let's get into our DFS tactics for the 2022 CJ Cup. And we're going to start with the mixed model that I ended up building for the CJ Cup this week. And it is similar in aspects and different. I definitely took out a lot of the metrics. Really narrowed it down since this is a new course. Don't know exactly how it's going to play. I have my assumptions, but I kind of just wanted to get an overall feel or view of the field in general. So the first thing I wanted to look is strokes gained total in a no-cut event. These are played quite differently, knowing that you're not in danger of missing a cut. You have 4 days to make a move. Sometimes guys play that differently. So I definitely wanted to look at who fares well in no-cut events. I didn't want to put too much into it, so that's why the 5%. I also wanted to look at short rough. We looked at that last week at the I'm already forgetting. At the Shriners. Geez, it's a long night already. At the Shriners, and it led to a pretty successful look at the rankings. I believe Sam Burns was number 4, Sung Jae was number 5 in my ranking. So it was a pretty good indication, especially for the short rough that was at the Shriners, and it's going to be short rough here at the Summit Club. As always, I value strokes gained approach. It's just the statistic I look to. It's the most consistent when projecting a field, so long as there's not a heavy split of putting or driving or anything like that. This has been my go-to. Now, the percentages may vary, but in a brand new course with no specific proximities or distance of par 4s, par 5s, and such. I just went a straight up 20% of strokes gained approach. I do feel like around the green is going to be a factor this week, so I went ahead and used 10% around the green. Putting, on fast and lightning greens, I have a feeling, I know they're going to be fast. I have a feeling they're going to be lightning fast if the course is indeed as dried out as it seems to have been made out on the tournament fact sheet. Opportunities gained. A lot of times I'll go with birdies or better gained, but I just want to see opportunities. Being a new course, we don't know if it's going to be easy or difficult. I have my assumptions it'll be easy. But I wanted to just get, again, a more overall view of who gives themselves the most opportunities. And then that's why I bumped up the putting more so than normal weeks to see who's going to convert on those opportunities in theory. Good drives. Again, with these greens being fairly large and with short rough, it's going to be more than just greens in regulation. And it's going to be more than hitting fairways. So if guys are, just bombing it down the fairway, bombing it down the hole, even if they ended the short rough, if they're hitting the green, that's still a good drive. They're still giving themselves an opportunity. So it kind of ties in with a lot of the other metrics that that I've been using in this statistical model for the CJ Cup. The last two being proximity. I just wanted a total proximity to see, who's getting closest to the hole. Again, with a new course, you don't know what proximities ranges, 75 to 100 and so on and so forth. That's going to be key. I do have a feeling that there's going to be at least 2 par 4s that are going to have the 200 plus proximity come into play. And I think all the par 5s are going to be attacked by the majority of the field. But I still didn't want to narrow it in on that specific proximity. So I just used just the overall proximity. And then lastly, because the par 5s I think are going to be attackable this week, I put a heavy emphasis on it to see who plays those the best. I really debated on looking at eagle rate as well. I ended up not doing that because birdies should be, in theory, enough to look at. Sorry, let me make sure chat is up and open. Again, I think the par 5s are going to be very, very easy and a big part of the success of who's going to win or do extremely well this week. So when I ran the model, you'll see here I've got Louis Oosthuizen as number 1. No real bad statistic. And again, remember, this is out of 77 players, so 39th out of 77 isn't the greatest. But no real bad statistic at all for Louis. Makes a lot of sense, especially since majority of these metrics are for the last 36 rounds. Louis, Colin Morikawa, Sung J M, Shane Lowry, and Taylor Gooch are my top 5, followed by Rory, Paul Casey, Abraham Ancer, Xander Schaffler, and Harris English. We can go over this a little bit, but I've already went ahead and taken it to Microsoft Excel with my rankings and the prices. We'll build quite a few lineups, but Taylor Gooch is somebody that I've kind of keyed in on this week. I liked him a lot last week. He was okay. 11th, okay. I really had high hopes for Taylor Gooch last week. In fact, one of the episodes, I don't remember if it was the DFS or the data dive, it just felt, it was a gut feeling. It felt like it was going to be a good Taylor Gooch week, and he definitely performed well. You can see here, I mean, he's not getting enough credit for his how well he's been hitting his irons. He's been pretty darn good around the green. Now, he has fallen off a little bit with the putter, but he's historically been okay with the putter. So if that comes back to, normalize or regress to the mean is the statistical, terminology. He's never been great off the tee, but my thinking has been as I've increased through the week, is that I don't know how much off the tee is really going to matter if this course does play fast and firm, and if it does not, if they've gotten it to pretty good shape where it's soft and receiving, then it's going to be a really bad week for me. I'm going on that fast and firm narrative pretty good, and if somebody isn't the greatest off the tee on a fast and firm course, it kind of gets mitigated a little bit. And especially, that's why I wanted to look at good drives gained, because Taylor Gooch's irons are good enough to where if he misses the fairway, he can still hit the green. And I'm kind of banking on a return to relative norm on his putting. He lost strokes at the Shriners. He lost strokes at the BMW, quite a bit of strokes. But, there is a lot of green here. It's not the volatile high green. You do have a 4 strokes gained at the Players where he top 5'd at the Houston last fall. So the extremely high variance is there in the good way, but he's more so been consistent, and he's been negative the past few tournaments. I think that's going to turn around. We're not on POA, but we're on Bent. It's not his He's still likes bent enough. He generally plays average difficulty courses better. Again, we have no idea if this is going to be easy, average, difficult. We just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I really like Taylor Gooch a lot this week. And for DFS, at that price range, it allows you to work in a lot of different players and strategies at 7,200. I'll go through this somewhat fairly quickly, and just to get it out of the way here, I have given basically zero consideration to the 7 Koreans that are playing that we don't know a lot about. So if you have any information on the 7 and you feel strongly about using them, by all means, you're going to know more than I do. All I can go by is this strokes gained total in a no-cut event, which they play the CJ Cup, and they generally have not done well. But let me so sort this by price. So we'll go through this somewhat quickly because, like I said, it's in Microsoft Excel as well. There are 6 guys above 10K. You got DJ, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schaffler, Jordan Spieth, and Rory. Well, you see 3 guys that are in my top 10 and 3 guys that are, 19th or lower. If approach is going to be a big factor, which I think it is, there's no way you can count out Colin Morikawa. Certainly his putting can hold him back. But other than that, anything with ball striking, approach, par 5s, good drives. He doesn't get enough credit for just being just a decent driver of the golf ball. He's not long, but he hits his fairways, and he's so good with his irons. He can what's the word I'm looking for? Mitigate that con or deficiency, I guess, in lack of length of his game. Proximity, great. Opportunities, fantastic. Plays these no-cut events very well. Plays short, rough courses very well. I like Colin Morikawa a lot this week. Let me pull up the expected or projected ownerships according to Fantasy National. There is one overwhelming pivot in this area, and there's quite a bit of chalk up here. So it looks like people are trying to build either a balanced lineup using one of these guys, or they're going stars and scrubs. And I think honestly a lot of people are going stars and scrubs, and we'll get into that here in a bit. Your pivot right now is Jordan Spieth, and I can understand why he's the lowest ranked of my 6 here. What worries me about Jordan Spieth is that his game hasn't been in a great spot lately. Now, yes, historically he's been a very good putter. He generally plays well, whether it's difficult, easy, or average. His irons have not been very good lately, and they were an absolute atrocity at the Tour Championship. And he hasn't played since, so maybe he rested up. Yes, he was in the Ryder Cup. He performed okay, but in a solo style tournament, he hasn't played since the Tour Championship. Even at the BMW, he wasn't great. Northern Trust, he wasn't great. His last really good performance was at the Open Championship. The WGC St. Jude, he top 15, yes. But even then, he was losing strokes with his irons. He just saved himself with putting. The last really positive performance was at the Open, and then the U.S. Open before that. I have some concerns about where his game is right now, and if he plays extremely well, then I will take a big loss. If around the green comes into play, he's going to be okay. Everybody knows about his short game prowess. I have concerns here, and while I don't think it comes into play as much on a fast firm course, you're still losing 1.1 to the field. So I have concerns about Jordan Spieth's game at this course. DJ's kind of Jordan Spieth is projected a little bit under 11% ownership. And do remember that that's actually very, very much a pivot just because there's only 77 players in the field. Again, let me make sure. Okay. Dustin Johnson's your other, I guess I'll call it a half pivot. He's at 14% projected ownership. It's okay. I don't mind Dustin Johnson this week. I know he doesn't rate out very well. But, this good drives game, like his irons haven't been great. And they haven't been great all year. But this is somebody off the Ryder Cup that I think is going to gain a little bit of traction. I think Scotty Scheffler gained the most off the Ryder Cup for, on the American side. But I think, DJ going 5-0, I think that's going to spark a little bit of a fire. I think he's going to have, not necessarily a resurgence, but I think you're going to see the DJ that goes out and wins once or twice in a season. Whether it's this week or not, I don't know, but I think he's going to be revitalized a little bit. He's been putting fantastic lately. Extremely fantastic. So that's bound to regress to the mean. I don't think his irons are this bad. I don't think his irons are this bad. His off the tee game has been fairly lackluster, and that's usually his strength. So I see a lot of things normalizing for DJ this week. I really do. I know he doesn't rate well in my statistical model. This is a gut feeling thing. I think DJ's going to be okay this week. And if he's not, then again, kind of like I'm not playing Jordan Spieth. If he does well, I'm going to be in a bad spot. If DJ doesn't play well, I'm going to be in a bad spot, especially since he is kind of a half pivot. The rest of the players in the 10Ks are pretty darn chalky. You got Justin Thomas at 19.5. Colin Morikawa is just under 18. Xander Schaffler is your projected most ownership. Second most, again, according to Fantasy National. He's at 21.6%. And I understand why. He's just got he doesn't have a lot of flaws in his game. Chipping is pretty bad, but again, I don't know how much that's going to play. I think it's going to play in a little bit. That's why I put it at 10%. But even then, he's still in the top 10 of my rankings. So, Xander is always a safe play. And then Rory is actually a semi-pivot like DJ. He's at 15%. I like Rory a lot this week. I really do. You wouldn't think it, but he's actually not the greatest at par 5 efficiency, which is surprising considering, Rory has got some prodigious length and he's generally pretty good with his irons. He can putt. But for whatever reason, he just does not attack par 5s or play par 5s the best relative to this field, and that could be an issue. But I like Rory. I'm using DJ and Rory this week. A lot of it being because they are, kind of half pivots right now. The chalk that I'm eating in this range is Colin Morikawa. I like Xander this week. I don't blame you if you're using Xander. I'm off of him because of the 21.6 projected ownership. Justin Thomas, I have no strong feelings for or against. I'm just staying away because he's at almost 20%. Quickly to the 9Ks. Victor, Sam Burns, Brooks Koepka, Finau, Sungjae, Hideki, Louis, Cam Smith, Answer, and Scotty Scheffler all decreasing by 100. 3 very chalky plays, and then a few pivots. The 3 chalky plays, Victor Hovland, your most projected ownership at 22%, Sam Burns at 19%, and Louis at 18%. Where'd he go? There he is. Louis number 1 in my statistical model. I'm going to have some exposure to Louis, but seeing him at 18% is a little, bums me out a little bit, so I'm definitely going to curb that exposure. The person I like the best in this range, and he's only ranked 20th, is Victor Hovland. I think Victor Hovland's going to be pretty darn good this week. Spoiler for my Twitter post or whatever. I've got a win bet on him. I think he's going to play pretty darn well. Yes, the around the green, it's all in the short game really. The putting and the around the green is really darn bad compared to the field. He's surprisingly like Rory. He doesn't play the par 5s the best, but you can't ignore number 1 in opportunities gained, number 4 in proximity, better than Colin Morikawa. Fifth in good drives, third in approach. He's got a lot of elite statistics where if the short game cooperates, and that's a big if, sure, but if the short game cooperates, he is going to be really darn good this week. And he has shown that he has some potential with the putter. He's not an abject failure. Now, having said that, his last 6 tournaments have been really bad, really bad. But he has shown the ability to, kind of go ham with the putter a little bit too. So if the short game cooperates, it's an if. I really like Victor this week. I really do. But having said that, seeing him at 22%, that's an actual fade for me in DFS for Victor. Only because of the ownership. You are setting yourself up so much for a 5v5 using Victor. And that's just tough to do, especially in a no-cut field and a limited field. It's going to be really hard to find a lot of uniqueness, and you have to be able to take advantage of uniqueness when you can find it. I mean, when more than a fifth of the projected field or projected contestants are using Victor, that is really hard to justify. Really hard to justify, even if you think he's going to win. Which I think he has a pretty darn good chance of winning. I still can't use a lot of Victor. I just can't, because I want to try to find my uniqueness somewhere. At 22%, that's a lot. Sam Burns at 19, I think it's another good week for Sam Burns. Okay. I mean, again, the 19% scares me, but I think it's another good week. And then finally, Louis, 18. Like I said, I'm going to have exposure to him because he's number one in my statistical model, but I'm definitely going to try to curb that as much as I can. The actual two pivots in this area are Brooks Koepka at 10%. And I think Brooks is going to play okay. He kind of faltered on the weekend at the Shriners. But I think it's going to be okay for Brooks. You've got Hideki at 9%. That's very low for a no-cut field. I understand why I'm not going to use Hideki at all. But if you see something in Hideki that you like, use him, because that is going to gain you a lot of win leverage, a lot of uniqueness on the field. And then Ancer and Schaffler are at... actually, Ancer's the biggest pivot of all. I apologize, I just now see this. He's at 7%. He's 8th in my model. He doesn't take advantage of the par 5. He's not the longest. And his short game, his around the green game can be iffy at best. But he's another player, second in proximity, better than Hovland even. Second in good drives gain. It's a lot of it because he's hitting the fairways. And the times that he doesn't, his irons are good enough. He's a good putter. I like Ancer this week. I'm not saying he should go out and win. If you remember, he was number one in my rankings last week. Missed the cut. So by no means is this a guaranteed all-star play. But at 9,100, at the bottom of the 9,000 price board, you're getting 7% projected ownership. I like Ancer a lot for DFS. I really do. And then, throughout here, you've got Finau, who's always popular. He's at 15%. Sungjae's only at 12.5. I like Sungjae a lot this week. Again, I'm never going to pick a guy to win back-to-back tournaments. But this is going to be, I think this is another good DFS week for Sungjae. You've got Cameron Smith that's at 16%. And I can understand why, especially if this becomes like a chipping contest. Cameron Smith's normally pretty darn good around the green. Most Aussies are. If it is indeed easy, he's going to play it very well. His putting has improved drastically. His around the green game has always been pretty strong. His irons have been stellar lately. Second at the Northern Trust, and I imagine he was close to the top of the leaderboard in strokes gained approach. And when he's losing, he's not losing a lot compared to the field. It's the off the tee game that kind of worries you with Cam Smith. And again, how much is it mitigated this week with the fast and firm is it's soft. If it's soft, then Cam Smith might be in a little bit of trouble. But if it is indeed fast and firm, he can make up for that for the lack of distance using the course. So I like Cam Smith a little bit. At 16.1%, I can get away from it, considering he's the quote fourth highest owned or projected owned. So for me, as much as I like Hovland, it's a fade. I like Burns. Brooks is okay. Finau is usually too popular to use. And again, I don't have him ranked very high. I love Sungjae this week. I'll have some Louis. Cam Smith I can leave alone. I like Answer a lot. I like Scheffler too. Didn't really talk about Scheffler. He's at 10.5%, which is a pivot this week. Yeah, I can see pathways for Scheffler being good this week. 8,000s. Harris English, Fleetwood, Simpson, Mark Leishman, Jason Kokrak, Tyrrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, Casey, Adam Scott, and Patrick Reed, all separated by 100 again, like the 9Ks. You've got one semi-chalky play, and all the other. Looks like all the rest of this area. And this is why I think contestants are going in a stars and scrubs approach. The highest projected ownership in here is Jason Kokrak, who is your defending tournament champion, at 12.5%. Literally, the next guy is at 11, and there's quite a few under 10. We'll just go down the list here. Harris English, I like Harris English a lot this week. He doesn't give himself the most opportunities. If this is a birdie fest, that's where he gets into trouble. His irons aren't the greatest, therefore his proximity is pretty bad, but he takes advantage of par fives. He's pretty darn good with the putter in his hand. I like Harris English quite a bit this week. Somebody I don't like at all is Tommy Fleetwood. He is projected at 2%. So if you're a Tommy Fleetwood believer, just like Hideki, you're going to gain a whole lot of leverage on the field if you use Tommy Fleetwood and he does well. I just can't get there. Webb Simpson, I think even though he's rated high in my statistical model, I think Webb Simpson's probably going to struggle this week. Again, it's just more of a gut feeling type thing. This doesn't feel like a Webb Simpson type course. He's at just under 10. Mark Leishman the same, just under 10. I'm not using Mark Leishman at all. Kokrak we talked about. Tyrrell Hatton, somebody I like. He's at exactly 10%. He has his deficiencies, of course, but he's decent with the putter. He plays these no-cut events usually pretty well. He's good around the green. I like Hatton enough to where I'm going to use him. I love Shane Lowry this week. He generally plays long courses well, plays difficult courses well. If this actually is a difficult course, he generally plays those well. He is only at 11%. I like Shane Lowry a lot. Paul Casey is somebody who's generally pretty darn popular in these style events. I mean, he's ranked 7th. He's second in approach, first in good drives, second in par fives. Now, his putting has been really, really bad. And if you watch the Ryder Cup, I don't think he made a significant putt further than 3, 4, 5 feet. He really struggled on those greens, and that could absolutely come back to bite him now. But he's sub 9%. It's very rare that you get Paul Casey under 13%. He is 8.8 right now. I love Paul Casey for that reason this week. Adam Scott, Patrick Reed, Adam Scott, Patrick Reed, they're both pivots. I'm not going to use them. I'm just not going to use them. High sevens, Rose, Nah, Homa, Siwoo, and Sergio. Homa and Siwoo are kind of interesting. I don't want Sergio, obviously. Don't have him starred. They're low in my rankings. Kevin Na, I think, is going to struggle quite a bit this week. I don't know where Justin Rose's game is. I'm just avoiding him out of that for that reason. And then Sergio, I mean, he's coming off a good Ryder Cup. He generally drives the ball very well. I don't know. He doesn't give himself a lot of opportunities. He's not great around the green. He's not great putting. So if this actually is a short game type course, which I can see an avenue to where it is, this is not a Sergio thing. This has to be an absolute bomb fest for Sergio. Sergio doesn't get enough credit for him being as long off the tee as he is. This has to be a bomb fest for Sergio to do well. I just don't think it's set up that way. Homa and Siwoo, I mean, yeah, I've got them starred. Like, I just started the top 35 because there's so few guys in the field. You're going to have to use people just to get some differentiation in your lineups. Let's see. Homa, all of the high 7Ks are under 9%. So that tells you everything. Like, people are just avoiding the 8K and high 7K range. That's why I really think the majority of the contestants are building stars and scrubs. Sergio's the highest at 9%. You've got as low as Justin Rose at 5%. Yeah, I don't have a lot of strong feelings in this area. If I did play somebody, it would be Siwoo. But you always you just worry about Siwoo because he can implode. And if this is not an around the green type week, I mean, you see the rest of the statistics is going to be a struggle for him. So it's a risk. It's a calculated risk, but it's a risk. Max Homa is okay for the opposite reasons. Like, if this is a chipping contest, it's really bad for him. This needs to be an iron and long iron contest, a driving the golf ball contest. I don't feel strongly about either of these. Moving to the low 7Ks, you've got one extremely chalky play, and that's Aaron Wise at 18%. I understand why. I like Wise a lot. I'm going to have a bit of exposure to him just because I think this is going to be a pretty good tournament for him. But seeing 18%, I'm definitely going to limit the amount of exposure to him. Absolutely. The other semi-chalky plays in here, Maverick McNeely at 14%, which is upsetting because I really thought Maverick McNeely might be a sleeper. I was really hoping on that. Looks like other guys, at least statistically driven, are going there as well. I'll definitely use him. He's a semi-pivot, but I'm not happy to see the 14%. Taylor Gooch, again, I was really high on Taylor Gooch. He's at 16%. So if you're in this low 7K range, you're going to want to find probably somebody else other than Taylor Gooch, maybe even other than Maverick McNeely. The other one's Russell Henley at 13%. I like Henley a lot too. But it looks like Harold Varner, if I'm venturing into the low sevens, is going to be the pivot of choice. He is sitting at 11%, just over 11%. And there's enough to like here about Varner. His irons are okay. He has room to get himself in trouble, which is always the issue you have with Harold Varner. Because his chipping's not the greatest. He's okay at the proximity. His distance is pretty good. So there's enough to like there with Harold Varner if you're wanting to pivot away from this chalk. I mentioned how I was going to eat the Colin Morikawa chalk. I'm going to eat probably some Aaron Wise chalk. And I'm probably going to eat some Taylor Gooch chalk because I just think this is going to be a good Taylor Gooch week. Moving to the 6Ks very quickly, you've got two very, very popular 6K players. It is Cameron Davis, which I actually don't know if this is going to be a good event for him. Cameron Davis at 14%, and unfortunately I was really, really high on Johnny Vegas. He's at 17%. So these two guys, Cameron Davis and Johnny Vegas, are bottoming out for these Stars and Scrubs lineups. So that gives you an idea on who guys are using down in this range. And I'm not using anybody down here. I've been bottoming out at Johnny Vegas, but seeing as popular as he is, unless I really have to come down as low as 6,300, I'm okay with Brandon Grace a little bit. I kind of like Emiliano Grillo this week. I know Poulter's rated well in my model. Yeah, I'm not as confident in him. I've been trying to bottom out at Keegan. Keegan and Griot are kind of where I've been trying to bottom out at if I'm building a Stars and Scrubs type lineup. Again, down here, I just don't see a lot down here. I normally try to pride myself in finding these hidden gems, if you will. Just don't see a lot there. Vegas was going to be the one, and he's at 17%, so can't really call that a hidden gem. Cameron Davis at 14%. I'm completely okay fading Cameron Davis. The rest of the 6Ks, you got Keegan Bradley at 6.5. You've got Hudson Swafford at 6, and those are the next two highest behind these two. So this entire range is pretty much a pivot if you're willing to go down this far in your price board. So with that, my basic feelings on the price board. Let's check the weather before we move to Microsoft Excel. Basically summed up as it's going to be very, very nice. No wind tomorrow, very little wind on Friday, very little wind on Saturday. It could pick up Sunday afternoon just because it looks like there's some wind coming in Monday. So if that actually gets pushed up, it could make a bit of an interesting finish. But essentially, weather's not going to be an issue. Calm winds, beautiful temperatures. It's going to get a little warm for Sunday, but when was the last time you had Vegas in the 70s? So yeah, it's going to be a beautiful weekend for golf. Let's move now to the Microsoft Excel as I transition there, close that out, and bring up Microsoft Excel. Again, these are my rankings, the percent owns, the salary and stuff. Let's try and build a couple of lineups. First off, these are some of the these are the metrics that I was looking at during the week. I ended up using, not including them in the data model, but I definitely looked at them through the week, and they have certainly been a tiebreaker of sorts when considering players. If this is indeed a bomb fest, I do want to see who, just hits the ball the furthest. That's why I'm pretty high on Rory, just in case it's a bomb fest. Somebody like Johnny Vegas, I was really high on. Kokrak's getting a little bit of play. Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, another reason why I like him. Sand saves, I think sand saves, not necessarily sand saves, but just sand play in general. Because I think, again, these par fives are just going to get attacked, and guys are going to take their chances, being in the sand in 2 and just getting up and down for birdie, especially on these par fives and the short par fours. So I wanted to look at sand play in general. So another reason why Henley I liked. Sam Burns is good. Xander, he doesn't have a lot of weakness in his game anyway, except for chipping around the green. Louis. I wanted to look at wedge distances in case the fast and firm is really true. And plus, guys are just going to be going for the green and going for these short par fours. So this kind of ties in with the strokes gained around the green. I kind of wanted to see some wedge distances. Somebody like Rory is good from wedge distances. Sam Burns. Russell Henley's got some of the best combination at 3rd and 9th. 9th and 9th, Max Homa. 10th and 12th, Haddon. 12th and 7th, Tringali. So definitely wanted to look at that. And I also wanted to look at long irons on the 2 par 4s that I really think are going to play long. And the par 5s, I believe all 4 of them are going to get attacked the way that's proximity from 200 plus. So if I could find a guy that was pretty darn good in all 3 of these, I really liked, using them a lot. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot of people I really liked. I've already explained why. I'm not big on Justin Thomas. He's been the highest. I don't mind Tringali. Terrell Hatton I mentioned. I really like. Brooks, I think this could be a decent week for Brooks. So that was the reasoning behind looking at these specific proximities. And then I mentioned in the Data Dive show about 3-putt avoidance. Because these greens are so large, they're undulating, going to be fast. Definitely wanted to see, other than just total strokes gained putting, I wanted to see, who's the best lag putters or, avoiding 3-putts and such. So these were some factors that, while they didn't, use any percentage in the data model, I definitely wanted to look at. So with that being said, let's cover the tiers lineups really quickly, or tiers contest for those who play it. Tier 1, only 3 players: Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, and DJ. I like Colin Morikawa the best, but if he's chalky, I don't mind a pivot to DJ. I really don't. In a tiers contest, I'm probably avoiding Justin Thomas. Tier 2, Rory, Xander, Brooks, Tony Finau, and Jordan Spieth. I'm okay fading these two completely. Brooks is probably the pivot I would go to. If you want security, if you want safety, go Xander. I like Rory the best of the entirety of Tier 2, and I don't think there's anybody else down here. No. Tier 3, Louis, Sungjae, Sam Burns, Victor Hovland, Hideki, and that's it. Okay. Again, I'm out on Hideki. If you have a reason to believe in Hideki, by all means, go for it. You're going to gain a lot of leverage on the field. Louis is my number 1. Him being so chalky, I kind of like Sungjae the best in this tier. Sam Burns is a good play as well. Again, I like Victor a lot. It seems like he's going to be pretty darn chalky. So my 2 plays in this range would be Sungjae and Sam Burns, maybe a little bit of Louis. Tier 4, Paul Casey, Abraham Ancer, Jason Kokrak, Webb Simpson, Cameron Smith, Tyrrell Hatton, and then finally Tommy Fleetwood. Well, I talked about Tommy Fleetwood. He's scrolled on a 77-player field. No thank you on Tommy. I like Tyrrell Hatton a lot. I like Tringali okay. I'm actually out on these two for different reasons. Kokrak's a little bit chalky for my taste. I just don't think this is a Webb week. In this range, I'm going Paul Casey or Tyrrell Hatton. Casey's more of a safer play. Tyrrell Hatton's more of a boom or bust. So whichever 2 you want there. And I don't mind Ancer this week at all either. Tier 5, Shane Lowry, Harris English, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, Adam Scott, Patrick Reed, and Mark Leishman. Comes down to 2 players for me. I love Shane Lowry this week. I would use him quite a bit. Harris English is the other. I don't mind Scotty Scheffler. I really don't. It comes down to these 3, and really for me it would come down to these 2, with majority being Shane Lowry. I just think this is going to be a Shane Lowry week, a good Shane Lowry week. Lastly, Tier 6, Russell Henley, Cameron Tringali, Harold Varner, Gary Woodland, Jason Day, Stuart Sink, and Ricky. No, I just don't. I don't have anything here. I like Henley. I like Henley the best. He's probably the chalkiest of the 3. I kind of like Henley the best. Not much there, in my opinion. So, I would probably take in my ideal lineup. I'd probably go something like DJ, Rory, probably Sungjae, Paul Casey, Shane Lowry, Russell Henley. That's probably a pretty chalky build. Again, I'm not the best at tiers contests, so that would just be my overarching feel. Let's move on to building some lineups. Let me hide these columns here. Let's build some lineups. And first, let's start with the what I think is going to be a pretty darn chalky build or lineup construction is stars and scrubs. So let me sort this just to make it easier. Sort by column B, largest to smallest. So as we talked about, or as we saw, people are gravitating towards Johnny Vegas as the bottom of their lineup. Now, it depends on how stars and scrubs they want to go. I'm going to assume, let's build both actually. So let's go extreme stars and scrubs. Let's say people are doing both of those, and it would help if I could type. So if they do indeed go both of those, that's leaving them 9,300 per. It seems like Justin Thomas, dang it, come on. Justin Thomas, Xander, that's now leaving them with 7,800. So maybe they're not going Thomas and Xander. Let's say Justin Thomas, and then probably Victor. So it leaves them 8,150. Who is the common one down here in the 7,000s? Aaron Wise, maybe? So that leaves 8,900. Harris English isn't really all that chalky. But I would imagine a lineup look something similar to this. Maybe if they brought Aaron Wise down to Taylor Gooch. That leaves them 91. Yeah, 91 is Answer or Cameron Smith at 92. Maybe they're finding another 100 somewhere. But that looks like to be a very chalky stars and scrubs. A pure stars and scrubs. So let's try to maybe another version of this. Let's say they're not willing to go Vegas and Johnny Vegas and Cameron Davis. So let's say they go Xander. The other bottom I could see them maybe using, if it's not Cameron Davis, it doesn't look like they're using a lot of Keegan. Let's try Russell Henley, and this might actually end up being more of a balanced lineup, but they still have their number one, big stud in. Let's try Xander and Victor, and again, I don't like to use the same player, but it's hard to argue with 21 and 22%. So let's say they use both of those. That gives them 8,050 per. Again, a lot of people are just kind of avoiding this 8 and 7K. So maybe they're going something to the effect of, let's try Maverick McNeely and see what he brings. 88. Technically that's Tommy Fleetwood and nobody's using. Webb, Mark Leishman. Again, a lot of people just aren't gravitating towards this 8 and 7K. Johnny, if they're going pure, let's see, Johnny, Cameron Davis, bottom of the 7Ks, Gooch and Wise. And a pure stars and scrubs, this would be Justin, or it would be DJ, but let's say Justin Thomas and Xander. And that still leaves them with 1,000 to play around with. So I imagine those are some of the chalky lineups that people are making. I don't know how many stars and scrubs I'm going to make, especially because I don't like anybody below Johnny Vegas, and he is so chalky at 17%. I just don't like anyone down here. So I am pivoting towards a balanced lineup, and those balanced lineups have been bottoming out at Brandon Grace, but most of the time they're bottoming out at Keegan or Griot. So Brandon Grace, and then I told you I like Dustin Johnson. Let's try Rory. Rory all the way down to maybe Sungjae or Answer. I'll try to squeeze Sungjae in here. Sungjae, I mentioned how much I like Tyrrell Hatton. Gives me 77.50 per. This could be, if I'm willing to eat the chalk on Aaron Wise, which I am a little bit because I think it's going to be a decent week. This gives me 8,100. That's Adam Scott I don't like. Patrick Reed I don't like. If I could find another 100 somewhere, maybe bring Sungjae down to. I don't like Hideki. Louis a little bit chalky for my taste. Cam Smith, no. I mean, if I'm willing to go Abraham Answer, who I like, there's 300 that I could spin somewhere. Some of the lineups have been going this route for me. A lot of my lineups have absolutely been bottoming out at Keegan. Somebody else I kind of don't mind is Kevin Streelman. He's just not a. I don't know what his upside is. I really don't, and his floor can be pretty low. I just don't see a lot of upside with him. What he has going in his favor is the extreme lack of ownership. So any stars and scrubs that I have been building has been something to the effect of maybe Griot and Kevin Streelman. Let me try to build this balanced lineup real quick for Keegan, and I'll jump back to the stars and scrubs that I might be able to, talk myself into. Let's go Keegan, and then, we'll come all the way down to, let's say Brooks. Come to Brooks, and then let's say I'm willing to eat in this lineup the chalk, or not the chalk on Sungjae, but let's say I'm looking to be okay with the chalk on Louis. Somebody else down here in the low sevens I kind of like. Russell Henley, he's a bit chalky for this area, but he's not chalky overall. Let's say Russell Henley. It leaves me 8,500, per. That's, Harris English and Adam Scott. I don't particularly like. If I'm willing to take the gamble on Siwoo in this lineup, that gives me 9,400. It's Hideki. If I found 100 more, it's Sungjae. If I bring down Russell Henley to Cameron Tringali, for example, somebody else I've been gravitating towards is Paul Casey for the lack of ownership. That leaves me 89 in Harris English that I like this week. So, and I just realized that I have been doing all of this without you seeing, and I apologize profusely. I'm sorry. I've been doing that. Hopefully you've been following with the names. Again, you can ignore this. This is just projected ownership and then my rankings. So these two are going to be different, or at least this column will be different for you. But these are the projected ownership. So that this lineup here is projected at like 10.5% ownership. Let me kind of build a couple of these lineups back for you. Let's say people are going, Johnny Vegas. We'll go the extreme example, Cameron Davis. We'll say Taylor Gooch. Let's see. Again, people are just avoiding this entire really area. Maybe Maverick McNeely. Leaves them 11-4, so, Justin Thomas, Xander. And that still gives them, 1,100 to play with. Perhaps they're trying to, 73 to 84. That's Tyrrell Hatton. Maybe they bring Gooch up to Aaron Wise. Now that gives them, 900, so 82. It's Paul Casey. He's not really being used. I like McNeely quite a bit. The only thing that scares me with McNeely, is that for his area of the price board, other than Aaron Wise, he's pretty chalky for the area. Now, overall, in the tournament, he's not chalky at all. He's kind of like a semi-pivot, to be honest. But you're talking Aaron Wise at 18% in the low sevens. You got Taylor Gooch at 16, and then McNeely at 13.8, who I like quite a bit this week. I really do. I mean, he's 18th in my stat model. Henley is somebody else that I really like, and he's pretty chalky. If I'm coming down in this area, if you're looking for a pivot, it's been Harold Varner. But yeah, no, I think you're okay using McNeely. You have to be a little bit careful in the sense that you got to find a little bit of uniqueness in other ways on the board. If you're using like McNeely, 3 max should be good though. Yeah, I would think so. What I'm advocating is that you avoid something to the effect. I mean, you can see this lineup that I just made is 17.5 projected ownership. What I am advocating that you kind of avoid is something to the effect of McNeely, Victor, I don't know, Tony Finau, who I don't like a lot this week. Something to this effect. There is absolutely no reason not to use McNeely. Just be careful when you're using him with a lot of other perceived chalkier plays. And again, the only reason being is that he's somewhat chalky for his area of the price board. That's the only thing I'm mentioning. But I like McNeely quite a bit this week. I really do. So you're spot on with that. Hovland. I've got a win bet on Hovland. And I mentioned this a little bit. I know you just tuned in. If this is a short game contest, if the course is indeed fast and firm, it's going to be a struggle for Victor, only because his around the green game is so bad. But you can't ignore the elite statistics he has. He's third in approach. He's fifth in good drives, fourth in proximity. That's what's really surprising. He's fourth in proximity in this entire field of elite players. He's the best at giving himself opportunities. There's a lot to like with Victor. The only reason, I've got the win bet. I think he's going to play well this week. Because I have the win bet on him, and seeing that he is the most projected ownership, and again, this is projected per Fantasy National, I can fade him. I can absolutely fade him in DFS because I have my exposure to him in a win bet. Again, this is more of the short game problems, even though I don't factor it into the rankings because it's 0%. I still wanted to look at these statistics, and again, it just backs up the things that I use for percentages. Wedges, pretty bad. Sand saves, obviously. But distance is okay. His long iron proximity, great. So, yeah. There's a lot of reason to like Hovland. I'm avoiding him in DFS simply because of that. Someone else in this price board I like, Sam Burns. I like Sam Burns. He's pretty darn chalky. If you're up in here, if you're using Victor, I see no reason to try to find 200 and use Rory. I think this is going to be a pretty good week for Rory. Again, of the things that I have valued, approach being the most, putting, Rory's not bad at anything. Actually, it's surprising. You think of Rory, prodigious length and all that stuff. He's actually not the best at par fives. And if the par fives are indeed as easy as I think they're going to be, that could be a problem. But if you're leaning on Hovland, I would advocate to find 200 more, because you're getting a lot of leverage from Rory, or from going to Hovland, from going from Hovland to Rory. But again, I think balanced is going to be the way to go, because it seems like a lot of people are going stars and scrubs. I mean, you see all the high percent ownerships up here. And then when you come down to the 6Ks, Vegas, 17% for a 6K. Cameron Davis, 14% for a 6K. So, who are you referring to as he has struggled recently? Avoiding Hovland, yeah, just because of ownership. Who are you referring to as he has struggled lately? Sam Burns? Or Hovland, yeah, absolutely. Avoiding Hovland just because of ownership is too high. I was very impressed with him at the Ryder Cup. Being his first Ryder Cup, I was just impressed with him. Yeah. But, there's certainly no... actually, you know what? Now that you mentioned that he struggled, let's take a look really quickly. I apologize. Let me switch back to this web page view. Let's take a look at Victor. Again, around the green, putting. He actually, he was last week at the Shriners was a bit disappointing, I guess. But I would advocate that he's just not this bad around the green. He's never been good around the green, I'll give you that, but I don't think he's 9 strokes. I don't think he's 9 strokes worse than the field. I think this is a bit of an aberration here. Shoot. Let me make sure that chat stays up. Let's go, Brooks. Hey, Mark, how you doing? But I like Brooks quite a bit this week. I think he's the pivot. He is the pivot in that area. But looking at Hovland for B here, he hasn't. I don't think he's struggled as much as you might think. Again, it was a poor chipping performance for him at the Shriners. The Tour Championship, he played pretty darn well. Again, do I think he's 8 strokes better than the field with his irons? No, I don't. But he has at least shown consistently that he's pretty darn good with his irons. Again, not 8 strokes, but I would say probably 3 strokes with his irons. Again, I'm just avoiding him. He has 5 events and his price. I just don't see it. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. His price and his ownership, absolutely. Again, I'm also okay fading him for another fact of I have a win bet on him, so there's my coverage of Victor in that sense. Basically, if you're using Victor, again, projected 22% ownership per Fantasy National, you're going to have to find a lot of uniqueness. Yeah, I don't think he's been as bad as you might have thought. Even at the Open, he played pretty good. The Northern Trust wasn't great, but again, it's all based on his short game. If the short game is anywhere mediocre, not an abject failure, but just mediocre, it's going to be a good week for Victor. Now, that's the risk you're going to have to take. risk of that plus the ownership. I mean, there's a lot to like about Victor, but there's also a lot to avoid him as well. Merck, let's look at Brooks, and I'm just again going to come back to Microsoft Excel because I don't want to keep switching back and forth. I like Brooks as the pivot in this area at 10%. There's not a lot to dislike about Brooks, but there's not a lot to like either. He obviously attacks the par fives, which I believe is going to be easy par fives, so he should get his fair share of birdies. Obviously, he gives himself a lot of opportunities, and he generally plays these no-cut events pretty well. Now, granted, around the green is a problem. Putting has been a problem for him. I like Brooks a lot for the fact of this. He's kind of the the inverse of Victor, whereas Brooks Koepka's short game is just as much as a problem as Victor's, but Brooks has literally half the projected ownership. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. And you're saving $200 to use elsewhere. I don't mind Brooks. If I'm in this area of the price board though, and I understand he just won, I'm looking at Sungjae. I mean, he's a semi-pivot in this area. He has no bad statistics of those that I'm valuing. Again, if you're valuing different statistics, it could be different. Maybe you are valuing, around the green, where somebody like Tony Finau you'd want to avoid, but you want to use Brooks and Victor and Sam Burns and Rory. But if you're gravitating to the top 9, the higher end of the 9s, I really like Sungjae this week. I'm not saying he's going to go win back to back, but in a DFS contest in a guaranteed 4 rounds, he's going to get you his points. A lot of teams I've been using have been going Rory, Sungjae. I like Colin Morikawa a lot too, but he's a little bit chalky. But he's number 2 in my statistical model. Like, I'm gonna use Colin Morikawa. So Sungjae I like quite a bit. I actually don't mind Abraham Answer. Now, yes, he was my number 1 player in the statistical model last week, and he missed the cut. I understand all that. If this is a bomb fest, avoid Abraham Answer. If you think this is going to be a bomb fest, avoid Abraham Answer. We just don't know because the course has never been played. I like Schaffler okay. I like English a lot this week. I do. Even though Webb Simpson's 16th in my statistical model, I don't think this is a Webb week. So I've built a couple of lineups, and I don't want to go too long. I don't want to make this show too long, but I'd be more than happy to, kind of go back and forth with you on Twitter. But let's kind of take a look at. I showed you one lineup that I've been kind of constructing. The problem is, and I think Mark can tell you that I kind of pride myself in trying to find the quote hidden gems down here in the 6Ks, and there's just not much here. I love Johnny Vegas this week, but at 17%, I can avoid it. Cameron Davis at 14%, I don't like it all this week, so that's an easy fade for me. I know you asked about Ricky last week, Mark, and I just don't see it. I mean, he played okay at the Shriners, but he still missed the cut. I just don't see it for Ricky, and until he proves it, he's just got to prove it. I've been bottoming out at Brandon Grace, and I don't love it, but if I'm trying to find money, I've been bottoming out at Brandon Grace. Keith Mitchell. What do you like about him? Because I don't have a lot on him. What do you like about Keith Mitchell? The irons have been pretty bad. He's been a decent putter, and he's long enough. He's going to take advantage of par fives. Obviously, here, proximity with long irons. I'm an iron based guy. And these irons are so bad. At least they have been recently. You definitely have, just 2.5%. So if there's something you see in Keith Mitchell, absolutely use him. Absolutely. You've got enough there, if this is, if it becomes if putting's a key, crucial point. If par fives, he needs his eagles, he can go out and get his eagles. Yeah, I just don't like anybody under Johnny Vegas. I just don't. At the top of the show, I mentioned, if you have any information on these Korean guys, good. You see the ownerships. These are errors in spelling. If you have any kind of knowledge on them, and you have any kind of indication, use them. I don't. I'm avoiding them because I don't know enough about them. So anyone you would play just because it's a no-cut event, someone that seems to do better as tourney goes on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's what this strokes gained total no-cut. And again, I only put it at 5%. I just mentioned like Sung Jae. I understand he's only 23rd, but Sung Jae is somebody that over the course of 4 rounds is going to get you his points. The scary thing, like in normal weeks, you're trying to get 6 of 6 through. When everybody's guaranteed to get 6 of 6 through, you're trying to, 1, find uniqueness, and 2, find guys that can go on birdie streaks. And if you watch the Shriners on Sunday, Sung Jae just lit it up. He can go low with the best of them. I like Sung Jae for that reason. Again, Colin Morikawa is a bit chalky, but I mean he's number 2 in my model. I'm going to use him some. Let's see, some other guys that do well in these no-cut events. Tyrrell Hatton. I like Tyrrell Hatton quite a bit. And this whole area of the price board from, high 8s all the way down to high 7s. This whole area of the price board is an entire pivot. Down to here. I wish it would stay highlighted. Gosh dang it. Well, the high 8s to the high 7s. Like, everybody's avoiding the 8Ks around here. I mean, Kokrak's a bit chalky for this area. But I like Paul Casey. Now, it's absolutely scary about his putting, but you can't argue with the irons. You can't argue with the proximity. Even the par 5s he takes advantage of. Like, Paul Casey's somebody that can get you his points. He's just more steady, whereas Sung Jae can just go on streaks. Again, like I said, I kind of like Tyrrell Hatton. I really like Shane Lowry. Now, he doesn't play these no-cut events well. I do like Shane Lowry a lot this week. He generally plays long courses well. If it indeed is tough, and again, we just don't know because this course has never been played, I actually think it's going to play pretty easy. But if it does get tough, Shane Lowry has proven time and time again he plays long courses well, he plays difficult courses well, and when you combine the two, he's one of the best. And there's certainly enough here that you wouldn't want to see. If this becomes a sand game, a wedge game, but I mean his iron, he doesn't get enough credit for his irons. Good drives is fairways, or he hits the green in regulation. So I imagine majority of this is here. But he's 11th in proximity. He's decent enough around the green if you keep him out of the sand. He gives himself a fair share of opportunities. Yeah, I love Lowry this week. I really do. And at what is this, 11%? Yeah. Again, like I said, this whole area of the price board is just a pivot. People aren't building balanced lineups, it looks like. A balanced lineup is the pivot. Somebody else, B, that you mentioned, Siwoo. And I don't like Siwoo a lot this week, but for specifically your purpose, the seems to do better as the tourney goes on, / it's a no-cut event. The biggest thing you always have to worry about with Siwoo is the withdrawal. And now it's still technically a an issue here, but he's not. He's guaranteed to have his 4 rounds, and he can go low with them too. He takes advantage of the par 5s. He's decent enough around the green if this doesn't indeed become a wedge fest. I like Siwoo for what you're mentioning, and the fact that he's guaranteed his 4 rounds unless it's a withdrawal. I like Taylor Gooch. It's just he's so chalky for the low 7s. I like Taylor Gooch. But if I'm in this area of the price board, I don't mind using Harold Varner. I'm not in love with it, but just because he's a pivot, I don't mind it. I don't mind Cameron Tringali. I really like Russell Henley. I wish he was a little bit less ownership. I like Keegan Bradley. At 6.5%, yes, the putting's atrocious, but I mean, you can say that about Paul Casey. You can say that about Victor Hovland. When you're, there's enough good here for Keegan to, either hope that the putting is mediocre, or maybe he just has a decent week on the greens. That can happen. And the fact that, while he's not as elite as Victor Hovland, clearly, you're saving $3,000 with Keegan when he has the same deficiencies as Victor Hovland. He's just not as elite as him. So, yeah. So, if there's any other questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them real quick. The show's just been going on a little bit longer than an hour. But this is the kind of stuff I love. I love building lineups. I love evaluating, relative values. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, I don't know if you were here, B, and I know you weren't, Merc, or at least you weren't in chat. A lineup that I've been kind of gravitating towards, as much as I like Colin Morikawa this week, I've actually been starting my lineup with Brooks, Merc. Brooks and Sungjae is a very common combination that I've been using just because of the pivots. Obviously I like Colin more this week than Brooks. I like Xander more than Brooks this week, but they're so darn chalky that Brooks is worth the uniqueness. Absolutely. And then Keegan has been my bottom out. As much as I love Taylor Gooch and Aaron Wise, in this kind of scenario, since I have enough uniqueness up here, I feel, then somebody else, and B, you hit on him when you joined the chat, like Maverick McNeely. Yes, he's a little bit chalky for this area, but he's unique enough in this grand scheme of the player pool. I like Maverick McNeely. I've been using a lot of at 82 Paul Casey and 84 Terrell Hatton. This has been a common theme. I don't want to say this exact lineup, although I'm probably going to write this down and use it for some of the contests. But you see here it projected at 10.3% ownership, and obviously you're not going to have 10% of your contest lineups be this, but this is a pretty low percent owned for a WGC invitational style field. This is a lineup I don't mind at all. It's a bit boom or bust. So if you're just trying to make a little bit of money, like I wouldn't use this in a double up, for example. I would not use this lineup in a double up. But if you're using, if you're trying to hit home runs, this lineup can absolutely hit a home run. Absolutely. We talked about Sungjae. He can go low with the best of them. Paul Casey is just steady. He's going to get you his points because it's 4 rounds. Keegan's kind of the weak link in this lineup because I don't know what his upside is, and certainly his floor can be pretty low. McNeely, I like a lot this week. Brooks being the pivot. Brooks can go low. Hatton's kind of a wild card, but he plays these no-cut events well. He's top 15, top 20 in the world for a reason. This is a lineup this is the style of lineup I like, because nobody's building a balanced lineup. That is a complete pivot on the rest of the contestants, it seems, based on Fantasy National ownership projections. But guys, I really do appreciate jumping in chat. I love it. Do you play a lot of lineups? I play 2 and put them in nearly all 3 max and single entry. I play my fair share of double ups, so naturally I'm a conservative gambler, I guess is the best way to put that. I am okay winning a little as opposed to losing. Now, yes, that limits my, finishing, in the top 10 of a huge, 17,000 player contestant field. I play a lot of double ups in that regard, and I'll use my Aaron Wise's and Xander Schaffler's in that. But I do play a lot of lineups. I really do. I really try to build as many lineups as I can just to see what my options are. And honestly, Fantasy National is fantastic for that. It can build you. I've built as many as 150 lineups, and I'm sure it can do more. 150 lineups saying I want this player in 15% of my lineups, this player in 5%. Generally speaking, I try to build as many lineups as I can, just to get as many options as I can. Maybe there are lineups where Sung Jae is my top owned, or maybe I have Rory Sung Jae instead of Brooks Sung Jae. Things like that. Yeah, I build as many lineups as I can. Now, certainly I have my favorite lineups that I will make sure I put in all the contests. But I generally don't repeat as much as I could, because I want to give myself as much coverage as I can. That's my general rule. Is it right? There's no right or wrong, really. You just got to pick the right players. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just try to give myself as much coverage, which, sometimes it can be frustrating. It's like, well, I have the right players in none of the right combinations. Happens. That's the risk I'm willing to take. So hopefully that answers your question. I build as many lineups as I can. Certainly have 2 to 3 favorites that I will make sure I put in every contest I'm in. But I certainly diversify. I don't use the same lineups. And if I were to enter, 3 20-entry contests, I will make sure that the majority of those entries are diverse in some way, form, or fashion. So, again, this show's been going on quite a bit, which reminds me, I've got pretty exciting news to announce here in the very near future. So make sure you stay tuned and follow me on social media. That hopefully you saw that tonight, where I was going to start late, but I've got some exciting news where I've got the ability to have more content available. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. But guys, again, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the chat. I have fun with this. It's also fun to have a little bit of banter. If Sung Jae falls apart, or if Victor does indeed win the tournament, that means I'm going to absolutely lose. I'm going to get my shit kicked in DFS if Victor does well, or if Xander does well. I'm making a bit of a bold call on Abraham Answer, considering he played so poorly last week. If I make these bold calls, it's fun to just join me in chat and say, "You dumbass, why in the world you pick him?" Like I'm high on Shane Lowry and Terrell Hatton. If they finish in the bottom 10, come in and let's have some fun with it. So, but honestly, I enjoy hearing about your all success. I really want to hear about it. I enjoy knowing that I contributed to your success, or at least I hope I have in some way. So, with that, that's going to be the end of the DFS Tactics show. Good info, keep it. I really appreciate that, B. I will absolutely do that. I appreciate it. I really do. And yeah, I'll search for you on Twitter. Mark, B, again, guys, thanks for tuning in. Good luck this week and weekend. I really hope it goes well. Let me know how it's going throughout the weekend. With that, that's going to be the DFS Tactics for the CJ Cup. For any bets that you've made this week on it, for all of your DFS contests today and every day, may all your bets be profitable.